There is a kind of powerful exhilaration in the face of losing everything, like the excitement of war when one kills or takes the chance of being killed. Francis has taken the biggest risk of his life in the way he's making this film. The film is now $3 million over budget, which the distributor United Artists has agreed to put up. But Francis has to pay it back if the film doesn't make $40 million or more. That just gets me all the more focused on the present moment and not allow myself to think about the what-ifs of the future.
Hello, my name is Michael, and I obsess. I come across something that grabs me and I consume until I can't take anymore, and then I'm on to the next. Some obsessions last a week, others a lifetime. It is my intention to explore these obsessions with you as they occur while the passion is hot. Welcome to Eclectic Obsessions. I first saw this in the theater and it completely floored me. I was already a fan of the film Apocalypse Now and the novella it was based on, Heart of Darkness. This documentary felt like the missing piece of both. We will be exploring Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse, on this episode of Eclectic Obsessions.
If you know your lines, then you can forget them. Because you know more or less.
I see. But that's what I'm trying to do. Forget those lines.
No, but it's no fair to forget them if you never knew them.
That's a youngish director, Francis Coppola, captured on location in the Philippines in 1976, filming his much-troubled and much-praised Vietnam War picture, Apocalypse Now. The movie that footage is in is a remarkable new documentary called Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. And this is, quite simply, one of the best movies of this year, and maybe the best movie I've ever seen about movie making. One of the reasons that the woman shooting the documentary footage included in the film was Coppola's wife, Eleanor. Obviously, she had remarkable access. And here, Coppola and his cameramen try to shoot the helicopter attack scene with the Philippine Army copters that are being called away for use in the Civil War that was going on at the same time.
What?
They're taking away 5.
5? They said 2. Wait a second, stand by. We just heard they're taking away 5 of our helicopters.
The shooting went way over time and way over budget, creating a scandal back home that made news. But Coppola couldn't quit. He had invested many of his own Godfather millions.
You know, I was financing the movie. How could I quit?
Also at risk in the film was its leading man, Martin Sheen, a last-minute replacement, here shown in improvisational scenes, high on booze.
My heart is broken.
Sheen suffered a heart attack during the production, and in this audio tape made by Eleanor Coppola, her husband is talking to Hollywood trying to keep it a secret.
That gossip can finish me off, because if UA hears that it's 8 weeks, UA with a $27 million negative is going to force me to complete it with what I've got. And I don't have the movie yet.
And Marlon Brando proved to be no picnic either, as Coppola throws him lines off camera so Brando can improvise when he wants to.
I can't think of any more dialogue today.
I don't know if I can tell you how much I enjoyed this picture. You see people really at risk here, big careers and big money on the precipice. Now, I know, of course, that the movie would get made and become a great artistic and financial success, but the greatest thing about this documentary is that while you're watching it, you are actually in suspense. Are they going to finish this movie, or is it going to kill everybody? If you love movies and movie making, and if you don't, I don't know why you'd be watching the show, then you must see Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. And even though this has been financed by Showtime and has been shown on Showtime, I saw it once, see it in the big screen. I saw it there. It's spectacular.
It's opening around the country, and it was directed by Faxbar and George Hickenlooper,
Yes.
who had access to this documentary footage that Eleanor Coppola made 15 years ago, and also, most remarkably, to secret tape recordings.
Right.
Coppola did not know that
Right.
his wife was recording him. It
Yeah.
shows a lot of courage and honesty on the part of both of those people to
To
make
let it
these
go.
resources available. And what it provides for future generations, or as you say, for anyone who loves the movies, is a look at how movies are really made. And we
Right.
know that Apocalypse Now is a great film, but boy, I admire it more now because you see that these people really were hanging out there twisting in the wind trying to get this movie made, and they did it somehow, and this is a fabulous documentary.
Well, this is going to be real high up. I'm not going to say how high. I haven't seen all the movies this year. It's going to be real high on my list of the best films of the year. The other thing is, you know who I really want to have see this picture?
Who's that?
Not just movie fans. Other movie makers. It should shame them. Because look at the pictures we review.
Might scare them, too.
Look at the pictures we review week after week. Are they even trying to hit one out of the ballpark like this guy? Are they shooting from their heart? Forget it.
That's right.
Hearts of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse is a 1991 American documentary film about the production of Apocalypse Now, the 1979 Vietnam War epic directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Hearts of Darkness chronicles how production problems, among them bad weather, actors' poor health, and other issues, delayed the filming of Apocalypse Now, increasing costs and nearly destroying the life and career of its director. The documentary was begun by Coppola's wife Eleanor, who narrated behind-the-scenes footage. In 1990, Eleanor turned her material over to two young filmmakers, George Hickenlooper and Fax Barr, who subsequently shot new interviews with the original cast and crew and intercut them with her material. After a year of editing, Hickenlooper, Barr, and Coppola debuted their film at the 1991 Cannes Film Festival to universal critical acclaim. Apocalypse Now began as the dream of a radical group of young California filmmakers who, in the late 60s, wanted to revolutionize the medium. But at the time, the war in Vietnam was still too inflammatory a subject to obtain studio backing for, and the project was shelved. Still, the dream would not die, and fresh off the success of his Godfather films, Francis Ford Coppola announced that it would be his next project. What followed would go down as one of the greatest public fiascos in movie history, a monumental struggle against a conspiracy of bureaucracy, nature, and self that would drive its creator to the brink of bankruptcy and madness, leaving him forever changed. Apocalypse Now premiered in 1979 at Cannes, shared the Palme d'Or, and went on to become one of the great mythic productions in film history. It told a story about Vietnam that was inspired by Joseph Conrad's 1899 novella Heart of Darkness, about a journey up the Congo River in search of a man named Kurtz. In the film, Martin Sheen commands a Navy patrol boat that penetrates a Vietnamese river in search of Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando, who has set himself up as the god of a tribe of jungle Indians. The production was bedeviled by monsoons, huge cost overruns, health problems, and logistical nightmares, as when the Philippine government of Ferdinand Marcos tried to rent Coppola the same helicopters it was using to fight rebels 10 miles away. Brando put Coppola under enormous pressure by turning up without having read Heart of Darkness, and refusing to be shot except in shadow. And Coppola, in conversations he did not know were being recorded, shouted in despair to his wife, "I tell you from the bottom of my heart I am making a bad film. We are all lost. I have no idea where to go with this." Yet Coppola's vision somehow remained secure. John Milius, flown to the Philippines by desperate United Artists to try to bring sanity back to the script, remembers that he walked in prepared to convince Coppola that the war was lost and they had to salvage what they could. After 90 minutes, he says, Francis had me convinced that this would be the first film to win the Nobel Prize. Hearts of Darkness is based on documentary footage that Eleanor Coppola shot at the time, and on recent interviews with both Coppolas, plus John Milius, George Lucas, and actors Martin Sheen, Frederick Forrest, Robert Duvall, Dennis Hopper, Timothy Bottoms, and Lawrence Fishburne, who incredibly was only 14 when he played one of the patrol boat crew. Marlon Brando allegedly refused to be interviewed, claiming Francis still owed him $2 million. Fragments of Orson Welles' radio broadcasts of Hearts of Darkness are used as a narrative device. Eleanor's secret tape recordings were also made available, and the result is a fascinating, harrowing film history. Coppola has given the film the alternative title of Watch Francis Suffer. We feel for once we are witnessing the true story of how a movie got made. Francis Ford Coppola disagrees with his portrayal and initially refused to release the documentary on DVD. It was finally released on DVD in 2007 with an optional Coppola commentary track. Dramatically, the film is more coherent and more fully formed than its subject. Also, its central character, Coppola, has a self-dramatizing tragic grandeur that verges on the Shakespearean. The Coppola we see here is a mass of competing impulses and traits, a hustler, a visionary, and a fool, all at once. Both genius and brat, he's capable, it seems, of nearly anything, from childish fits of temper to egomania and grandiose self-pity. At one point, he's ruthlessly decisive, replacing his original lead Harvey Keitel with Martin Sheen after shooting is well underway. Later, when Sheen is forced off the picture with a heart attack, he's happy to play God, telling his staff that if Marty dies, I want to hear that everything is all right until I say that Marty is dead.
Nothing is so terrible as a pretentious movie. I mean, a movie that aspires for something really terrific and doesn't pull it off is it's scum. And everyone will walk on it as such. And that's why poor filmmakers, in a way, that's their greatest horror, is to be pretentious. So here you are, on one hand, it's trying to aspire to really do something. On the other hand, you're not allowed to be pretentious. And finally you say, F it. I don't care if I'm pretentious or not pretentious, or if I've done it or I haven't done it. All I know is that I am going to see this movie. And that for me, it has to have some answers. And by answers, I don't mean just a punchline. Answers on about 47 different levels. And it's very hard to talk about these things without being very corny. You use a word like self-purgation or epiphany, they think you're either a religious weirdo or an college professor. But those are the words for the process, this transmutation, this renaissance, this rebirth, which is the basis of all life.
From the start, the heavens seemed to have it in for the film, transforming Coppola from a cocky, Academy Award-winning director into a kind of whining Job. The script, written by John Milius and originally set to be directed by George Lucas, went through so many changes that finally Coppola was writing it as he shot it, and actors were improvising. Then, right in the middle of shooting the Ride of the Valkyries sequence, the Marcos government took back the helicopters it had lent him to help turn back the rebels in the Filipino Civil War. Following that, a typhoon hit the Philippines near where it was being shot, destroying sets and forcing the production to shut down for 2 months until they could be rebuilt. Then Marlon Brando, who, as the renegade Colonel Kurtz, was to get $3 million for 3 weeks' work, threatened to pull out, taking his $1 million advance with him. At one point, both Coppola and his wife had to be admitted to hospital for dehydration. As the portrait of an artist in crisis, Hearts of Darkness is unparalleled. When the price tag for the picture grows from $13 million to at least triple that amount, Coppola becomes nearly crippled with self-doubt. This film is a $20 million disaster, he cries. Why won't anyone believe me? I'm thinking of shooting myself. Nonsense, his wife says, so you turn in your paper and you get a B instead of an A. But I'm going to get an F, he insists. His greatest fear, Coppola says, is that he will make an embarrassing, pompous film on an important subject, and I am doing it. Part of the problem was that Coppola could never come up with an ending. For weeks, with the meter running, he fretted about what to shoot, giving his actors call sheets that read, "Scenes Unknown." I call this whole movie the idiocy. None of my tools, none of my tricks, none of my ways of doing things works for this ending. I have tried so many times that I know I can't do it. It might be a big victory to know that I can't do it. I can't write the ending to this movie. To make matters worse, because he had put up his own holdings as collateral to make the film, every wasted minute pushed him closer to bankruptcy. When asked if he ever thought of quitting, he answered, "How could I? It was my money. How could I quit from myself?" From the evidence presented here, Apocalypse was as much about its creator's own struggles as it was about Joseph Conrad's book or Vietnam. As a result, the production becomes the filmmaker's journey upriver into the dark waters of the self. By this equation, Coppola places himself at the dead center of a grand metaphor. "My film is not about Vietnam," he says at a press conference shortly after its release. "It is Vietnam. It's what it was really like. There were too many of us. We had access to too much money, too much equipment, and little by little, we went insane." In this regard, the filmmakers have brought in Coppola's view of himself as a high-rolling daredevil driven to risk everything to get at the truth. That Coppola is a genius confronting the existential abyss and that his struggles are all in the service of art is a given. Throughout the film there are bits from the radio production of Conrad's novel, staged and narrated by Orson Welles, who had intended to tackle Heart of Darkness as his first film. Still, the film doesn't attempt to immunize the audience against the possibility that the filmmaker's problems were, with the possible exception of typhoons, largely of his own making. This was due partly to his own whopping hubris and partly to his work methods. As a director, Coppola likes to leave himself open to the inspiration of the moment, and as Coppola's old friend George Lucas observes, flying by the seat of the pants is almost always an invitation to disaster. But what's so remarkable here is not that Coppola courted disaster, but that he was so willing to take everyone else, including his family, down with him.
I know that every building that's built runs into big production overages. Every bridge that's built, every NASA project, any large project that involves lots of people, conditions, weather of a construction nature goes over all the time, and a movie is no exception. It's true that since it was my own money, once I felt that I was going in a direction, I wanted to continue going in that direction. Since it was my money, I just did it, really. I was very unhappy on every count. The light, the whole thing. So everyone forget that we even shot it. It no longer does exist.
The documentary strips Coppola bare of all defenses, and yet reveals him as a great and brave filmmaker. It also reveals the ordeal he put his actors and crew through on location in the Philippines and what he endured at their hands. We see a drunken and bloodied Martin Sheen improvising a breakdown while the room is charged with the possibility that he will attack Coppola or the camera. Sheen being given first aid after a serious heart attack, and Coppola screaming in outrage that Sheen's condition has been leaked to the trade papers and the news could pull the plug on the production. Martin Sheen admitted in subsequent interviews that he was in terrible shape before embarking on the film's epic shoot, smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. This, and the stress of the filming, were contributing factors to his heart attack. In other passages, Dennis Hopper, his mind adrift on drugs, is unable to remember his lines, and yet somehow improvises brilliantly. Marlon Brando, on the other hand, at $1 million a week, turns up without preparation and engages in endless debates with Coppola about his character. Few films have ever taken us this far into the filmmaking process, and the exposure is both agonizing and revelatory. The director and his team are seen in intimate detail. Actor Sam Bottoms confesses that he was high on either LSD, pot, or speed during much of the shooting. And Martin Sheen talks about his chaotic inner state during the shooting of the film's opening hotel room scenes, and how he was so drunk that he didn't even realize he had punched a mirror, slicing open his hand. We also get to see an elephantine Brando, who, Coppola discovered, had never bothered to read Heart of Darkness, improvise his way out onto a limb, and then give up. I can't think of any more dialogue today.
My greatest fear is to make a really embarrassing, pompous film on an important subject, and I am doing it. I confront it. I acknowledge, I will tell you right straight from the most sincere depths of my heart, the film will not be good.
Well, it's like going to school. You finish your term paper, and maybe you get a B instead of an A+ that you wanted, so you get a B. And so
But I'm going to get an F.
And I'm feeling like a idiot, having set in motion stuff that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't match. And yet I'm doing it. And the reason I'm doing it is out of desperation, because I have no rational way to do it. What I have to admit is that I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, how do you account for the discrepancy between what you feel about it and what everybody else who sees it, or the other?
Because they see the magic of what has happened before. I'm saying, hey, it's not gonna happen. I don't have any performances. The script doesn't make sense. I have no ending. I'm like a voice crying out, saying, please, it's not working. Somebody get me off this. And nobody listens to me. Everyone says, yes, well, Francis works best in a crisis. I'm saying this is one crisis I'm not gonna pull myself out of. I'm making a bad movie, so why should I go ahead? I'm gonna be bankrupt anyway. Why can't I just have the courage to say it's no good? There's almost anything I do to get out of this. I'm already thinking about what kind of sickness I can get. I was in the rain on the platform thinking if I just moved a little, I'd just fall 30 feet. It might kill me, but it might paralyze me or something, and then it would be a graceful way out.
Seeing all this, you wonder how the film got made at all, and that this epic folly eventually turned out to be an epic accomplishment, deeply flawed but shot through with brilliance and audacity, and that it went on to make around $150 million worldwide boggles the mind. Perhaps Coppola is right to think that the gods have their eye on him. To have this youthful dream realized not only with Apocalypse Now, but with this engrossing new film as well, seems close to miraculous. I'm sure I have missed a whole bunch of opportunities, and I am going to miss others, but I caught a lot of them too. In the end, it's about how many I catch, not how many I lose. Originally aired on the Showtime network in the United States, Hearts of Darkness won several awards, among them the National Board of Review Award for Best Documentary, an American Cinema Editors Society Award for Best Edited Documentary, 2 Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Awards for Outstanding Individual Achievement Informational Programming Directing, and Outstanding Individual Achievement Informational Programming Picture Editing, and the International Documentary Association Award. Hearts of Darkness was released by Paramount Home Video on VHS and Laserdisc in 1992, with further re-releases occurring in 1994 and 1998. Paramount later released the film on DVD on November 20, 2007. That version includes a commentary track from both Eleanor and Francis Ford Coppola, recorded separately, and a bonus documentary entitled Coda, about Coppola's film Youth Without You. The film was also released on Blu-ray in the Full Disclosure and Final Cut editions of Apocalypse Now.
The film Francis is making is a metaphor for a journey into self. He has made that journey and is still making it. It's scary to watch someone you love go into the center of himself and confront his fears. Fear of failure, fear of death, fear of going insane. You have to fail a little, die a little, go insane a little to come out the other side. The process is not over for Francis.
This is quite simply one of the best documentaries on any subject I have ever seen. It was years between the theater and my second viewing, but I never forgot it. Now that I own it, I watch it regularly. I highly recommend it, and I have been obsessed with it for years. Thank you for listening to Eclectic Obsessions. If you like what you've heard, please download past episodes and subscribe on iTunes for future releases. You can follow the show on Facebook at Eclectic Obsessions, on Twitter at Eclectic Obsess 1, on Instagram at Eclectic Obsessions Podcast, and on YouTube at Eclectic Obsessions. I'd love to hear what you think. feel free to email the show at ecobpod@gmail.com. We'll be back in 1 month's time with a new Eclectic Obsession.